Today I want to talk a little bit about Pentax. Pentax. Noticed recently that it is the 100th year of Pentax. I started off with Pentax, just wanted to talk about it. Make a little joke here and there. Noticed some news recently where Sigma is stopping all of their production, all of their development for Pentax K-mount lenses. The shift to mirrorless probably the main issue, but that's pretty bad in my opinion. Some users will say they only use Pentax, that's fine. I did use a lot of Pentax glass when I had that system. I started off with the Star Ist DS camera for Pentax. That was in 2005 or something like that. It's my first DSLR. Pretty nice camera. It had some issues with the grip, was not super comfortable. The camera function wise at the time was compared to like the original Canon Rebel DSLR, and the viewfinder was significantly better on the Pentax. A few things here and there were definitely better. Autofocus was not one of them, but that is one issue with Pentax that they've had for a long time is autofocus. Let's talk about what I think Pentax did well and what they haven't done well. First off, with the good stuff, I think they were really focused on the rugged, decently featured, kind of nature-oriented cameras. So you've got decent build quality. Now I did have some issues with my Pentax cameras. The front dial, the back dial would eventually stop working well. The Ist DS, the K7, those had issues with the dial. I think it was just they didn't have a good life to them, and they just eventually stopped working too well. So I wouldn't say that they were ultra rugged to some extreme idealistic level, but they were very well rugged. But I do think they were decently rugged. They started making some really unusual looking cameras, tried to keep the weather resistance in the cheaper cameras, which I think was a good option, good way to go about it. Also, going to talk about their first mirrorless larger camera. Of course, they had the Q system, which didn't work out for them.
Text transformation Taikosei system.
With their original mirrorless K-mount camera, I did buy one. It was called a K01. This camera. So this guy Mark, they had him design the exterior of the camera. I don't really know what their goal was with this. It was a large departure from what I thought their main focus was with the rugged cameras, and it's just not ergonomically sound, not decent looking from that like rugged perspective, no weather resistance, no EVF, but that was fine. Just to start off, had a good function set to it. It was basically like a K5 with all the stuff pulled out of it, and you've got that mirrorless version. I think there was some potential with that setup. If they had continued with it, if they had skipped their goofy little artistic design and just made a rugged mirrorless camera without a viewfinder, I think it could have been something. There's no mirrorless on the horizon as far as I know. They do have full frame now, which was the reason that I switched to Nikon. But after going to the D600, eventually Pentax released their full frame camera. Now they have the version 1 and the version 2 of the K1.
Digital Ichigan Review. Tokushuna system. Chisa system. Henkan system. Pentax system.
I always have a fondness for Pentax. My first video on this channel was about a Pentax piece of equipment. A lot of my original videos that look pretty rough. I was using sheets in the background instead of this nice curtain, and those videos are pretty rough, but if you want to see it, they're there. A lot of Pentax stuff. And I think the K7 and the K5 really like those cameras, besides of course the quirks of Pentax themselves like the autofocus, but those cameras were really nice, especially with a grip good in the hands. I do think the main turning point with Pentax was when the company sold off to Hoya. Development probably went down, a lot of resources went away at that point, so then they went to Ricoh, again with all of these switches. Probably a lot of the internal workings of the company had issues, and now we see them with not a ton of development. They do still make the lenses. I think it was a 50 somewhat recently that seems pretty nice. From now, I don't know if they will ever release any type of mirrorless camera that is a standard mount, larger mount, larger sensor. Who knows, maybe they'll still be able to. But I think they might switch more to just Ricoh stuff. You got the GR cameras, which does have a lot of Pentax technology inside with the shake reduction, which is really nice. I do like the GR cameras. They look pretty interesting, especially the current one. I would like to try it out at some point, but who knows when I'll be able to do that, because I don't have any close access to them. I'd have to buy it or rent it. If you can even rent those, who knows. Anyways, that's a little talk about Pentax at their 100-year anniversary. Thought I might as well, as my history with cameras, DSLRs, is a lot of Pentax. Scott from Photography Banzai. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing. That helps me out a lot. Likes and shares help out a lot as well. Thanks again. I still do have a Pentax camera. I bought this in Nagasaki, Japan when I dropped the camera that I brought there, and it worked decently well. I don't know if I'll ever get another Pentax, but I'll try to keep this one around.